Well, good afternoon. We are back together, and I think I'll turn my light on up here and see if maybe, there we go. That helps with some light and might look a little bit better. Okay, we are continuing with chapter 1, and it is dealing with a connection of brains, and we have started chapter 1. A couple things that I want to share with you, want to say, is that Box, I think, is now working. And I believe that the IT guy was with me this morning, and I do believe that it is working just fine. So you should be able to upload assignments from here on out. Now, the assignment that I gave you to use the word vase, flowers, and morning in a sentence, you are to email to me. But any other assignment after this one, you can use Box, unless I tell you otherwise, okay? Also, the video, the two videos that I thought you were able to view, you were not, and you shared that with me. And I worked with the IT guy this morning, and we have that one all worked out. So we are good to go with that. You will be given a project to work on. I do believe my GA and I are working on a project where you take a language sample from a child, and it's not going to be face-to-face. It would be something that we're going to have to do virtual, but you will be taking a language sample from this child, and you will be analyzing the child in the areas of semantics, pragmatics, morphology, and syntax. Those will be the areas. If we get into phonology, I may have you also analyze phonology. So you're going to hear me talk about those areas of language. I want to make sure you truly understand what you're looking for and how you analyze those. So I will be talking about those again. We talked about them, or I talked about them on Saturday when I did a video, but you probably haven't seen that one yet. So I'm going to review those today. I think that also some of you have sent me an email and said, you know, I'm just a little worried. I don't really know everything that is coming in the class, and I'm not really sure how we're getting grades and what's expected. And so I am going to clarify that and work on that a little bit to give you a little more information. I just haven't had time to do it today, but there will be 4 exams. Each exam typically is worth 100 points. The exam is true, false, and multiple choice. Multiple choice are worth 2 points. True, false are worth 1 point. We, in the first exam, will cover chapter 10 and chapter 1, and will be on or around September 21st. Let me look at the calendar. I believe that's what I said in the syllabus. I don't have that syllabus right in front of me, but I think that's what I said. Or certainly it wouldn't be the 12th. I think it is the 21st. Now, we will have a review, and I'm planning on putting that review live on Zoom. Now, I know that some of you cannot do a Zoom synchronous, meaning on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are at 10. I know that you're working or whatever. So I may do the Zoom review for the test twice. I think I may cancel a class, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, and do a virtual review. And then I may do one at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So maybe some of you could attend a Friday at 10, but the other part of the class list, maybe you could handle a 5 o'clock. So, but we'll talk about that. But I am going to do Zoom, and you will have the opportunity to pick one or the other for that review. I will give you more information about the project as the details come together. When I give you assignments to do, such as writing the sentence, telling me what you think language is, or how children learn language, that will be given to you on Canvas under assignments. I'll also mention it during the videotaping of a lecture so that you have it in both formats. I encourage you to check Canvas every day, every other day, for information that I put on there. And you're all really pretty good about letting me know if you have questions. If you don't have a Mac or a PC, make arrangements to borrow one, because the test will be on Canvas, and Lockdown Browser, the Respondus Monitor, will be activated so that you can be monitored taking the test and not using notes. So, and I think I've said that before too. So that's where we are. So let's do just a little bit of review. I wanted to review a little bit of information. I've already talked about receptive and expressive language, I think, but let me review that because that's really an important concept and I want to make sure you understand. Receptive language is the language that you understand, that goes in your brain. It's also known as language comprehension, language reception. It's your understanding of language. The other component of language is language expression. Now, they're two separate entities, but they are highly connected, significantly connected. Receptive language is what you understand. Expressive language is what you express. That expression can be written, you can say it, you can use a voice synthesized computer, you can sign it. It is that person's ability to convey wants and needs and thoughts. Now, when I do an assessment of a child, or maybe even an adult, I'm wanting to know what their language skills are like. And let's say I'm evaluating a third grader, because we know in elementary school, preschoolers, if they're struggling and the teacher asks for an assessment, we'll be looking at language. Well, let's say they don't qualify for speech therapy services. Maybe they don't qualify for resource help. There's no diagnosis. We just know this kiddo is just kind of experiencing difficulties in the room and maybe learning new information quickly or at a pace where we would expect it to be normal. So he gets a little help. Maybe there's a parent that comes into the classroom and volunteers, or there is an aide that is a paid employee of the program, and the aide helps him learn his ABCs and numbers and things of that sort. So then the child gets to first grade, and the teacher makes a referral, and you look at the child again, and I think, gosh, I don't know, he's coming along, but something just still doesn't seem, to be connecting. So I might do another assessment. And this time I'm going to look a little bit closer at language. Now, I'm not talking about English language, the language that we use to speak here in America. I'm not talking about German or French or Spanish. I'm talking about abstract thinking, memory, problem solving, generating sentences, asking questions. It crosses over into reading, spelling, math, social studies, science, it's vocabulary. It's all of the skills that we utilize to make us an academic success. So I'm looking at receptive language. How does this child understand language? And let's say that on the bell curve, okay, with 100 being right in the middle, this little kiddo is at 100. Well, that's a good solid score, and he's right at 100, so that's smack dab in the middle. Okay, I know that his brain is working. Might have some trouble with language comprehension, understanding something you're saying, following two-step directions, things like that. But now let me look at the expressive score. If the expressive language expression score is 90, well, it's not too far from 100. This little guy is maybe giving us what he has to give us. He's working to potential. Language reception might be here, and language expression is right here. And you're always going to be able to understand more than you're able to express. That's the way we work. It's the example of, I know what I mean, but I don't know how to express it. I know what that word means, but I don't know how to explain it. That's the difference between understanding it and being able to express it. Okay, now let's change the score numbers. Let's say the child still has that 100, that language comprehension. They understand it. You got to be able to understand something before you're able to express it. So, okay, has 100. And then they're coming in with a 75, a standard score of 75. Wow. That's 2 standard deviations below the mean. So you're looking at this kiddo's got a good brain, and he's up here with language reception, but he's way down here with language expression. Well, why? Why? He is not working to potential. That 100 tells me he's got a good brain and he could be doing more. But why is he down here? Then it becomes my job. Okay, what do I need to do to figure out the areas that he's having the most difficulty in, and how am I going to approach teaching him? He's not working to potential. Not working to potential. He's up here, but he's performing down here. So therein lies the difference between language comprehension and language expression. Language is abstract. It's fleeting. We have these crazy symbols that we use, and we have rules that we have to follow. And every language has rules. Every single language has rules that we have to follow in order to communicate effectively. Now, if somebody that we're talking to knows the rules, the same rules that we know, everything's going to go well. But if the person we're talking to doesn't know the rules, it's probably not going to go very well. So as long as each person communicating understands and knows the rules, we're able to effectively communicate with each other. We have 4 areas or components of language that are important that we will also utilize in that project. The first one is pragmatics. The second one is semantics. The third one is syntax. And the fourth one is morphemes. So let's talk about pragmatics first. Now, if you've been in some speech classes before this one, you may already know what pragmatics is. But if you are a special ed major or an LEd major, you may or may not know some of these terms. But pragmatics, in a very basic definition, is socialization. Does this child socialize appropriately? It's a child's way to manipulate a situation or a person to get done what you want to get done. We know that our kiddos who have a diagnosis of being on the spectrum, one of their primary disabilities within that definition is difficulty with social communication. This is the kiddo who is very impulsive in a classroom, blurts out responses, doesn't raise his hand. This is the child who is in your face. They're talking to you, you're here, and they're right here, and you're going, whoa, you're in my space. Back up, give me some room. This is the child that comes to you, and you're in a conversation with somebody else, and they're going, hey, 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 and you can't get them to stop. It's that impulsivity, almost perseverative-like, meaning neurologically they keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and can't break that pattern until you help them or interrupt that behavior. This is the kid who eye contact may not be really very good. This is the kid who has maybe some unusual fears. This is the kid that, they're a rule follower and they're on every other kid in the classroom to follow the rules, and they're going to come tell on them if they're not following the rules. Well, that doesn't make friends. This is the kid maybe nobody wants to hang out with because they're overbearing. They get upset if they don't win. They want the toys. They're not asking. They talk loud. That's the pragmatic component. The pragmatic component. Language to get things done. Language to get things done. It is the most functional component of language. We establish pragmatics in school. We learn a lot of our pragmatic rules in school. Please, thank you, you're welcome, may I, would you share rather than grab? Again, that impulsivity that we see in some kids. It is the most functional component of language. And if you hear me say the most functional, the most important, most frequent, those are important triggers for information that you'll probably need to know for an exam. Pragmatics is a social skill. You're maintaining relationships or building relationships. And of course, school has rules. The teacher's not going to let you slug the kid next to you. So those are rules of maintaining the social rules in the classroom of being able to get along with others. Body language. So you're learning those routines in school, the most functional component of language. It's nonverbal behaviors, verbal behaviors, actions. Pragmatics, again, I said, is learned through routine. And a lot of parents teach their children to be polite at home. And for a lot of parents, that's very important. I want them to sit there. I want them to pay attention. I want them to say please and thank you. For example, if you walk up to a child and you say, I really like those shoes, and the mom or dad is going to cue, what do you say? They're going to cue them. It's important to parents. I've heard it more than once in my experience with, particularly with first steps, for the child to be polite. Semantics is the second, and involves the meaning with which we wish to convey. Now, semantics is the reason that you're doing the sentence with vase, flowers, and morning, because we as humans who are wired to talk, who are wired to communicate, who are far more sophisticated than the parrots and the monkeys, we can produce an unlimited number of sentences or an unlimited word combination of sentences. And that's why I'm having you do those sentences, so that we can look at your interpretation of that, and if we find any two sentences alike, and we'll see. It involves the meaning we wish to convey. We use vocabulary to construct our thoughts and our ideas, and it's important that we're able to share our thoughts, our wants, our needs. What if we're thirsty and we couldn't get a drink? What if we're hurt or sick and we don't have the ability to communicate that? We're also using rules for combining those words into meaningful arrangements. Semantics involves word meanings and sentence meanings. The words, you're using the right word based on how it's defined, and you're putting those words together appropriately. The next one is syntax. And syntax uses the rules of grammar to connect different types of words. And the rule structure, very similar to what we were just talking about with semantics and the structure and the rules. We're speaking in an organized and clear manner, connecting different types of words in the rule structure. Morphemes, this is a biggie. Arrangement of words is important for stating our meanings, and each word is a unit of meaning. Now, children, as they learn language and as they progress, maybe are not using, they're only using present tense, not past tense, not using irregular verbs, not using plurals, because they haven't learned the rules for those languages. So, let me get some paper here. And my handy dandy, I wanted my thicker marker, but I don't see my thicker marker, so we'll just use this marker. Okay, if I use the word button, button. Now, button can be a noun, that thing on my clothes that helps to hold it together. I button my shirt. Oh, now it's an action. Now it's a verb. Button. But what if I did this? Unbutton. Unbutton. I have added a prefix. So the word button is 1 unit of meaning, because in order to recognize and identify the word button, I have to have the letter B, the letter U, the letter T, the letter T, the letter O, the letter N. Button. If I only have B-U-T, that is not button. Ooh, B-U-T-T is not button. B-U-T-O is not button. But this is button. Again, it's a noun or it's a verb, depending how you use it in context. Noun or a verb. When I use un as a prefix, un is a unit of meaning, but it can't stand by itself in a sentence. He went to un store and then came home. It makes no sense. The word un has to be connected to another word. The word un, 1 unit, it stands alone. No, it can't. Button is 1 unit. I have to have B-U-T-T-O-N for it to be the word button. But I have to connect un. I'm doing this backwards, guys, and it's so hard. I have to connect un with button. Un is 1 morpheme. So in the word unbutton, I have M-O-R-P-H-E-S-E-S. Oh, E-N-S. I have 2 morphemes, un and button. So the morpheme un, the prefix, it has to be added to something in order for it to carry meaning. Button is a unit of meaning, but you have to add un to another word, another unit of meaning for it to have meaning. Okay, now let's do this word. Well, you all know what this is, walk. This is, how I spell walk. I will walk to the store. I'm going to do it now. That's what that tells you, walk. I have to have W-A-L-K. It can stand alone. It's 1 unit. But what if I did this? Or this? Or this? What if I did walking? He is walking to the store. ING. Can't stand alone, but it's 1 unit and you have to attach it to another unit. 2 morphemes. Walk-in. Walked. ED is 1 unit of meaning. And it only becomes a unit of meaning when I attach it to walk. Walked. He walked to the store. S. He walks funny. He walk funny? Does that sound right? No. He walk funny? No. S is 1 unit of meaning, and it has to be attached to walk, which is another unit of meaning. Therefore, you have 2 morphemes. I know sometimes it's a little confusing, But it's important because when children begin to learn to read, they're going to encounter morphemes. Ly, ing, ed, s, ment. What about the word, I had one, unhealthy. 3 morphemes. Unhealthy. 3 morphemes. So when the child is learning to read and has progressed in school a little bit, these morphemes begin to come into place. And when they become into place, the kids are able to express themselves in a much clearer way. They can make their wants and needs known much more clearly. It allows you to understand more of what they're saying. Now I've got to put onto Canvas for you the Linguist Systems communication milestones. And I will talk about that with you, because when you know what typical development is, you know what atypical development is. We wouldn't expect a 1-year-old to be using morphemes. They're not developmentally ready. But I would expect a 3rd grader to be using morphemes because they have been exposed to those. In this communication milestone booklet by Linguist Systems, it will give you a list of morphemes, and it will tell you at what age we would expect those to start emerging. So when you know typically what you would see, then you know if the child isn't using those, then there could be a problem in development. And let me put it in a more simple way. At 6 months, a child is sitting. At about 12 months, the child is beginning to walk, and the child is beginning to use the first word. If I am introduced to a child who is 18 months old, and the child is not walking, that is a delay, because I know in typical development that child should begin walking 12, 13, 14 months. And here it is 18 months and the child still isn't walking. I would begin investigating that. And that is a big difference. 4 or 5 months for a child that's young like that is a big, big difference. 4 or 5 months to an adult, not such a big difference. But for a little one, it is a big, big difference. What if I had a child who is 18 months and is not talking? What do you think about that? Child is 18 months and the child isn't talking. But we know children begin saying their first word 10 months, 12 months, 14 months. This child's 18 months and says almost nothing. That's a red flag. I know that typical development shows me that this child talks around 12 months. But I'm seeing virtually nothing, hearing nothing. By the way, do you know what you might say to that parent, or who you might refer that parent to for their child? The child is 18 months and the child isn't saying hardly anything. It's very quiet. Do you know what you might do? I'd get the hearing tested. That's the very first thing I would do. I would get that child's hearing tested. Very first thing. We have to know if the child hears. Does he hear what people are saying? If he doesn't, if he has impacted cerumen, if you've watched those videos, the impacted cerumen, and remember that ear canal is only 1 inch long and 1/4 of an inch wide. And if you've got impacted cerumen, and cerumen is earwax, then that child maybe has not been hearing language. And we know that children have to hear it. The more severe the hearing loss, the more severe the language delay. If you can't hear it, it's hard to learn it. Okay, I will talk about morphemes again at another time with you. Okay, let's see what's on the next page. So language is abstract symbols. It is composed of rules, and there are specific things that we have to remember and use from those rules. There are things that are just guides for us that we have to use. We're using oral language, we're writing, we're signing. Just because you can't hear doesn't mean that you can't learn language. A child who has a significant hearing loss, profound hearing loss, may be diagnosed as deaf, doesn't mean that that child will not learn language. It doesn't stop them from learning language. But we're going to have to teach it in a different way. Will it be delayed? Probably. That doesn't mean they can't catch up. Will there be problems with articulation and resonance? Remember how that air resonates in the oral cavity, the nasal cavity, and the pharyngeal cavity, which is at the back of the throat. Resonance may be off a little bit, but it doesn't mean they can't learn language, because they certainly can. Okay, now, also we know that speech is very complicated, and it's a process that requires the coordination of respiration, phonation, resonation, and articulation. And those movements are very synchronized. We also know that we have supra-segmental aspects of speech, and that includes stress. Oh no, I've stressed those words. Intonation. Wow. Modulation of pitch. Uh-oh. And phrasing. So the supra-segmental aspects of speech make it interesting, and we're not monotone, and that makes us better speakers if we have some animation to our voice. We know that speech and language develop together, but they're separate, and you can have speech, the parrot, without language, because that parrot's just saying words. And we can have language without speech. An individual who's had a stroke who understands everything that's being said, but they can't generate the speech. They have damage to those cranial nerves, and they're not able to do that. Okay, no animal is as effective at communication than we are. And Charles Hockett is an individual researcher who studied the way animals communicate and compared that to the way that humans communicate. And in your textbook on page 11, table 1-2, there are characteristics that Charles Hockett talks about, how some of those characteristics are purely human, some are purely animal, and then some of them we both share. He wrote The Origin of Speech. He was a linguist, and he was looking at how we compare and how sophisticated we are at our communication. So he had 13 design features. He believed that those 13 features separate human speech from other forms of animal communication. Your text shows that 8 characteristics are present but are rare in humans and other species. 4 are present in human language. 5 characteristics are particular to human language. And the first area is the vocal auditory channel. Well, it's I say something, you hear it. You say something, I hear it. We're free to walk outside. We can do something, we can do dishes. So it frees us up to do lots of other things. And so that is definitely advantage. The auditory vocal channel for us, it leaves us free to do many other things. But it's not just unique to humans, because a bird can produce a sound, another bird hears it, that bird responds to the first bird, and that bird hears it, and that's their form of communication. That's the vocal auditory channel. And then you have the broadcast transmission and directional reception. Broadcast transmission and directional reception. You're sending and receiving speech signals, and animals do this too. And that was the second one. Vocalization's heard through sound waves. They produce sound waves, and so do we. And we talked about the pinna and how the pinna channels those sound waves into the ear. Rapid fading. Speech is here and it's gone. It's transitory, doesn't stay around for very long. We have speech sounds that are arranged into our words, and animals rely on vocal tones. Now they may also have some change in pitch, but their messages are through vocal tones. The fourth is total feedback. We have the capability to monitor what we say and how we say it. We can fine tune it to make somebody understand what it is that we are trying to convey to them, to make sure that they accurately understand us. And other species will do some of that as well, but maybe not to the same degree that humans can. Under specialization, speech is specifically designed for communication and serves no other purpose. We speak to communicate. Now, we talk to ourselves sometimes, and I don't know, maybe that's to help us remember things, but that is our whole reason for speaking, is for communication. And humans at birth can distinguish sounds. They know the sound of their mother, and they have a preference for speech sounds over music, other types of sounds. That they have a distinct preference and will turn towards speech sounds. Arbitrary. Why do you call a chair a chair? Why is a car a car? Sometimes our words don't totally reflect what we're looking at. Okay. Number 7 is discreteness. We have a certain number of sounds that we use in our language, certain number of consonants, certain number of vowels. We have these characteristics, these abstract symbols that make up a part of what we're saying. And there is some flexibility in that. And as we have talked about before, children from different languages have learned their own particular characteristics and these discrete number of sounds in their own language. We have a very strong genetic biological drive to communicate, and communication is very powerful, and sometimes it's amazing in very stark conditions that children do learn language, but they have to be exposed to it. They have the capacity for spoken language, but they have to be exposed to it in order to learn to speak it. Interchangeability, and this is under the section humans, but rare and limited in other species. That interchangeability means that any human being can say anything that is said by any other human being. I can imitate, I can repeat, and children learn by imitation. We can produce unlimited exchanges of information, and animals have a more difficult time doing that. We can produce very specific messages about people or things, or that are geared for specific people. We have also what we call semanticity. Now remember semantics that we had talked about just a little while ago, and meaning. Semantics is meaning. Semanticity is the ability to use human speech to convey specific messages, to convey specific meaning. One of the most powerful aspects of specificity in human communication is our ability to analyze, to look at. Is that really true? Did you say the right thing? Did you use the right word? We can analyze it. We can determine if we believe it, if we don't believe it, if they're telling us a joke. Are they trying to get me to say something that I don't want to say? It's almost like a deception in a way. But what we're also listening to is that suprasegmental component, the stress, the voice, the pitch. According to Hackett, productivity is one of the most important design features of human speech. Productivity is one of the most important design features of human speech. We have the ability to be creative with our communication. We can say things that have never been said before. We can take old messages and put in brand new information. Animals out in the jungle are not able to do that. As long as we follow the rules, we're in good shape. Displacement is one of the most intriguing features. We can talk about things from a distant time, a space, across vast oceans, something we saw in a book, something that we visited, or some place that we visited. We can talk about things that happened 100 years ago. Can that parrot do that? No. Can that monkey do that? No. Only us. It's unique to us. Duality of patterning is sounds that are combined in an infinite number of ways to produce an infinite variety of words. It expands the capability. We're not even touching the tip of the iceberg with what we can do with our words and our sounds. It's an infinite variety of sentences, and that's what I hope to show too when I see your sentences using those 3 words. Look at the new words that we have. Oh my gosh, we could put out a new dictionary every year, and I like dictionaries. I know you use your computers to look up words, but I like to hold that book and look them up. But we could have a new book come out every year with all the new words that are related to technology and science and social communication. New words all the time. Some come, some go. Discreteness. This is the flexibility that we have as infants to produce virtually all sounds known to all languages. And then we eventually will gravitate to the language that we're more exposed to. And it's a very powerful pull towards that environment that we're living in and exposed to learn that language. And we can't stop the acquisition if we wanted to. Experience, I think this is important. Experience facilitates language competence. Experience. Children need experiences. because we're adding additional language, new language. We're talking about words differently. I'm not talking about going to Europe. I'm not talking about going to Florida to Disney World. I'm talking about just giving them different experiences. Experience facilitates language competence. Interchangeability means that any human being can say anything that was said by another person. We know that children are learning by imitation, and that imitation is a big driving force for them. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We really don't have much of chapter 1 that's left, and maybe the 12th was a little bit closer to what I thought we might do, so maybe next week we may even get into some of the Zoom meetings for the review. But I will let you know that, okay? If you have questions, if you have concerns, let me know. I am going to do my very best to put a better timeline on Canvas. You know, when we first started out with 76 students and I asked to teach face-to-face, I had no idea they would only give me a classroom that would hold 32. And therein lies all of the emails that I sent to you. Who wants face-to-face? Who wants online? And so I was just frantic at trying to get that all pulled together. So it's been not as organized as I would like, but I promise you it'll get more organized. But never hesitate to send me an email. Alrighty. That's all for today, and I will talk to you later. Bye.